By the way, my social security number is 420-69-6666. Welcome to Wow of True, the podcast of your wildest memes.
We talk about niche internet fame, interview people who are making it on the internet, and chart our own misguided quest for online attention. I'm Isabel, your person who did not prepare who she was today.
And I'm Amanda. I'm just being myself because the most punk rock thing you can do is be yourself. Anyone could be famous on the internet, so why not us?
So related to that and being yourself, I was thinking about this while we were reading the intro, where one of my friends was telling us how he had memorized the entire intro with his other friend. And I think it would be really funny if we just had two other people read this at some point instead of us and just never acknowledged it.
I think that's a good idea.
Maybe we shouldn't tell the listeners about this, but I think it'd be funny.
I think that's a good bit. And speaking of good bits, last week we did our first video content where we talked about the TikTok that went viral about 16 quote-unquote entrepreneurs living together in a New York City brownstone, but they just made this beautiful New York City brownstone as not beautiful as they humanly possibly could have made it. And it is absolutely cursed, so you can check that out, our content about that, on our Patreon, patreon.com/wowoftrue. And you don't have to be a patron to look at it. You can watch it. It is public, but we are funneling you to our Patreon because that's marketing, baby.
But at least we're explicit about it. And you should go check it out if you haven't seen this house, because I cannot stress to you how much this is like a human's rat nest in New York. It's like they brought whatever is underneath the ground into our lives. Or maybe like a war hospital. Maybe I'm being uncharitable, but also it sucks and you should go look at it.
I also think I bring a very unique perspective to this matter because I did live for 3 years in an 18-bedroom punk house. So that happened.
Some choices were made there.
I made some questionable choices earlier in my life, but who didn't?
Speaking of questionable choices, get it? Today's our questions episode where we've asked you to ask us questions and you have asked us questions and we are going to answer them. That's how this works. I was going to say we're an advice podcast now, but we actually didn't receive any advice questions. So we're just kind of talking about random stuff on the internet as per usual.
Well, maybe we can ask each other advice questions. What do you need advice about, Isabel?
How not to fail the bar exam. That's what I need advice on.
I can't help you with that one because I have no training in law and everything I know about law is things that you've told me, like how when you get a cease and desist from SEPTA, the public transit service in Philadelphia, that includes references to Gritty, they probably think you're funny and they're just sending you a cease and desist because they have to.
Yep, that's how that works. None of this is legal advice. Oh, you want to hear a fun law fact?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you kill someone accidentally by running them over on your way to go kill them intentionally with a gun, that's manslaughter and not murder.
I think that you're gonna pass the bar because you know this vital fact.
It's super important. Do not take this as legal advice. Don't kill anybody. At Craig.
So our first question, we've organized our questions into vaguely related categories, but I just wanted to kick us off with a juicy one. So Alexa wants to know, what is our first memory of fandom/internet drama?
So Amanda, do you want to hear about my Warrior Cats RP experience?
I don't even know what Warrior Cats is, but I want to hear about this.
Okay, so for a certain segment of our audience, this has brought them into total fight or flight mode, but Warrior Cats is a series of kids' books about cats. Warrior Cats. It is one of those kids' books where the fact that it's about cute animals is a protective shield against parents, where everything that goes on in the books is horribly bloody. It's like Game of Thrones, but everyone is cute cats. And then, so when I was I think 8 or 9, my cousin, who was also 8 or 9, we were both reading these books, and then so he invites me to the site. So picture being 8 or 9 and not knowing what roleplay is and online RP, and then getting invited to a Warrior Cats RP website. And this is also in 2004. So you can imagine how this looks. And then so imagine like 8 or 9-year-old me like scrolling through all these pages of like people pretending to be cats and not understanding what's happening. And then finally I make a post being like, what the hell is going on? And then I was also very confused because my cousin was playing someone who was married who had like kittens with someone else. And I'm like, what the fuck is Addison doing on here?
Oh man.
And then so imagine me making a post out of character and being like, yo, what the fuck's going on? But I was 8, so I didn't know the word fuck. And then people getting mad at me on the internet. internet on the Warrior Cats RP forum.
Wow, your debut on the internet was people getting mad at you.
And it has just served me well since.
Speaking of us being small children and not knowing what things on the internet mean, I remembered yesterday when I was thinking about this question about when I used to play, like, Pictionary online, and people would go into private rooms to cyber, and I didn't know what cybering meant, so I just kept asking people what cybering means, and nobody would tell me.
Oh my god. That's so funny. How did you end up learning?
I think it was like years later, and I was just like, oh shit. And then people would be like, GTFO, we're trying to cyber. And I would be like, what does that mean? Just tell me what it means. But that wasn't my first memory of internet drama. I think my first memory of internet drama was I was on the Club Penguin forums when I was like 11.
What did people talk about on the Club Penguin forums? Like, what was the hot goss on there when you were 11 years old?
A lot of people did, like, graphic design. Like, I think I took graphic design commissions for free, but I was, like, 11.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
They probably were not very good, but I do remember making designs for people.
That's kind of cute, actually. I've changed my mind. That's good.
Yeah, people would, like, make Club Penguin fan art, and people would just talk about, like, new updates that were coming on Club Penguin. I don't know, but I remember I believe it was 2007 when Disney purchased Club Penguin. That was a big thing. Even as an 11-year-old, I was like, fuck you, Disney. I'm a indie princess.
An indie penguin princess.
Speaking of Club Penguin, I also discovered while researching the Disney acquisition of Club Penguin that in the final days of Club Penguin, people were doing getting banned from Club Penguin speedrun.
What was the fastest someone got banned?
Like a minute, 20 seconds.
Yo, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and this includes, like, creating your account, verifying it on your email, pressing, like, click, click, click through all of the intro stuff, and then you just type, fuck.
I love people. That's really good. That's funny. All right, moving on from the internet to not the internet, to the meat world.
We'll get back to the internet.
I should have not said meat world, but I'm gonna, I said it and now we have to live with it. All right, Aggie May asks, how did you two meet? And Zoe asks, what our first impressions of each other were and how it matches how we think of each other now. So what's your hot take on 19-year-old is?
I think we've mentioned this on the podcast before, but, gotta fill in the blanks for all of our new fans who aren't Craig from Craigslist. Just kidding, they don't exist. But we were in the same class, which was called Poetry in a Digital Culture. And I remember that I knew basically everybody in the class except for Isabel. And then we got paired for a group project at one point. It was like a paired project. And I was like, oh man, I don't know this person. I have to talk to a stranger. That's a lot of emotional labor.
Oh, how the turns have tabled. You have to talk with me like every other week for like an hour now.
Yeah.
I played the long game.
But then I remember we were doing the assignment and then we were talking about fanfic and I was like, this person's cool. And then I took advantage of Isabel's art skills for activism purposes by having Isabel design stuff for my activist crusade across campus because Isabel was that nerd who in class brought in like not doodling, but when instead of doodling, you bring in your tablet and then on your tablet, you're like drawing digital art during class as doodling. That was Isabel.
God, I can't believe I used to do that. Like,
it's a power move.
I think my first impression of you was that you had cool hair because I think at the time we met, you had, I want to say it was purple.
That sounds about right.
Like long purple hair. And I was like, wow, that fucks. I didn't say that. And I don't think I told you that because I was also just like a socially awkward person and we were in class. But I was very impressed by that. So I was just kind of like, oh, this person seems cool and like very counterculture. I guess my gauge at 20 for like counterculture was you're in Pylam and you have colored hair. Pylam being the 18-person punk house, which I think my impression of you shifted very away from that and more toward, oh, Amanda's a nerd who reads too much Harry Potter fanfic.
That is Extremely accurate.
So I don't know if I've lost or gained respect for you, but I'm glad we're friends. Although, wait, do you want to know what I spent like a majority of that semester doing while we were in class?
What?
I don't think I ever told you about this because it never came up, but like, do you know the game Mystic Messenger?
No.
It is a phone dating game.
Oh no.
It's in real time and you receive calls from the boys you can date in this. So every time I left class during the semester, I need to emphasize that it was for the purposes of getting a fake call from a fake boy.
I don't even remember you leaving class.
It happened like pretty regularly. I don't expect you to remember it because I tried to be very low key about it. Like, oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom or something. Normal people shit. But I was receiving calls from fake boys. So now you know that about me.
Isabel, why?
I wanted to 100% the game. It was really important to me when I was 20.
Oh man. Well, Bray asks, on a scale from Chugi to camp, where do we see each other?
By virtue of constantly using Chugi, despite me constantly telling you to stop using Chugi, Amanda, unfortunately, I need to deem you Chugi.
Yeah. I was teaching high school kids in like a summer writing program last week, and at the end of it, they give us like evaluations on how we can improve as a creative writing instructor. And one of the kids wrote, if you want to relate to Gen Z, you need to stop saying Chugi so much.
And they're right. That kid is right.
Man, this is great feedback. Thank you.
You know, I told you about Chugi as like an ironic thing that people don't do, right? Like as opposed to something you should like incorporate into your own vocabulary.
I just think it's really funny. It's become a bit that I'm like, I'm Chugi now.
I'm not trying to encourage you, but it is kind of a good bit.
Thank you. Maybe you would be closer to camp.
Yeah, the thing is like the camp is like very much associated with like Black queer people, so it's like a little weird to call me camp. But also, I don't want to be Chugi. So let's just leave it at that.
Well, Allison asks what our favorite meme is.
Okay, so I'm split between two because I think I use Spider-Man pointing the most. And if you don't know what Spider-Man pointing is, I can't help you because you should have seen Spider-Man pointing. But also, like, a meme that I've been getting a lot of mileage out of, pun intended, when you see where this is going, is just walk out. You can leave. Work, social thing, movies, home, class, dentist, clothes shopping, too fancy weed store, cops if you're quick, friendship, the share zone, if it sucks, hit the bricks, real winners quit. Have you seen this?
I have not.
I will send this to you. It's very good.
I do like the idea of sometimes quitting is a victory.
Just so you can visualize this and so our listeners can visualize it, it has like a skeleton on its way to like start going, and it's very vaporwave looking emotionally, not really physically, but emotionally. It's in like 4 different fonts. I just like real winners quit because I think, you know, sometimes you just gotta take the L and that's winning.
I think that's really inspirational. I'm taking this very sincerely because that's my brand on the podcast. But speaking of really sincere things, I do think that my all-time favorite meme is maybe the real blank was the friends we made along the way.
That's good. That's wholesome.
I just genuinely think it's very funny that that's such a present trope in media of like, maybe the real blank is the friends you made along the way.
All right, let's turn this like incredibly positive conversation, incredibly rancid. Aggie May asked the opposite question, which is, what meme do we wish we could delete from existence?
I also think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but that's just how important it is to me. Fuck doggo culture.
Oh shit.
Dogs are great. I love dogs. I will sit in the park and see a cute dog and be like, wow, look at that cute dog. But I think that liking dogs has become a personality trait for a lot of people on the internet. And it's just like, liking dogs isn't a personality trait. Everybody likes dogs. They're great. And I just hate certain words like doggo. It's not a doggo, it's a dog. But the one that really grinds my gears is human. Hooman.
Yeah, that's like a lot.
I say this as someone who is the unofficial press secretary for the official dog of Pennsylvania.
Oh shit, you've clout to back this up. Yeah, no, I agree with this actually. This is weird because I think I like dogs less than you do, but I'm a little bit more okay with doggo culture because I think it's kind of funny.
I feel like I like dogs a normal amount.
I just don't really like dogs that much.
Okay,
fine.
I don't know why this bothers me so much.
You know what it's like? It's like when people got really obsessed with being random and bacon.
Yes.
When we were younger. It's got the same exact energy.
It does. It's chuggy.
Yeah, it is chuggy.
It is.
Doggo culture is chuggy. On that note, I would delete hello from existence, not because I dislike it, but because it's really ruining my life.
How is hello ruining your life?
Okay, you know that thing where you start doing something ironically?
Yes.
But then you start saying it like unironically. That's me and hello, where I will just say hello to my friends.
I think that's me and Chugi.
All right, let's go deeper into the internet because I feel like we've organized these in like a manner such that the first question is very innocent, but by the time we get to question 3 in this like meme section, it's like, what's our favorite fanfics? And so this question is, speaking of ranking stuff, Bray wants to know our favorite and least favorite fanfics.
As Isabel said earlier, unfortunately, like 99% of the fanfic I've read in my life has been Harry Potter fanfic.
I do need to judge you for that, like, severely.
The thing with Harry Potter fanfic is that most of it is extremely bad because there's just so much of it, and it's like, I feel like Harry Potter is kind of like a gateway to fandom, where that's a lot of the time, like, the first fanfic that people ever read or write.
See, this is interesting, because that's true for our generation, where it's like Harry Potter or Naruto. We don't need to get into this because it's a whole other subject, but they're getting in through Dreams.
Dreams?
Okay, I don't actually know how people say this out loud, but Dream SMP. And Dream is a Minecraft YouTuber. I'll leave it at that for now. This is honestly weird enough that this has a totally different episode vibe, but that's what the kids are into these days, Minecraft YouTubers. I'm not joking.
I have no idea what that means, and I don't know if I want to know at this current moment.
This is why you're chooky.
This is why I'm choogy. But my favorite fanfics, which are Harry Potter fanfics, The Changeling by Annerb, which is like everything's the same except Ginny's a Slytherin, and then The Debt of Time by Shia Lonnie, which is 800,000 words long, and I have read it twice.
That's like a lot, dude.
It is a lot, and I'm kind of embarrassed by it. I don't know. It's good, but there's parts that are extremely cringe. But, I mean, that's just fanfic.
That's just fanfic. Can I be extremely rude to you for a second?
Yes.
From what you've told me about your fanfic reading, it feels like you like straight people fanfic.
That's kind of true.
I mean, you are straight people, so I can't give you shit about that, but it is funny to me.
I have been meaning to read, because you told me that Naomi Novik, who is the author of A Deadly Education, I recommended that book to you, and you told me that she's a big fanfic writer, and that A Deadly Education is literally just her dreary fanfic.
Yes. Okay. We need to talk about this on the pod, actually, because Naomi Novik is not just a big fanfic writer. Naomi Novik is one of the founders of AO3. So she's like the queen of fanfic here, right? The thing is, I read a bunch of her dreary fanfic way back in the day. By that, I mean like 6 months ago. And then I read A Deadly Education, and it hits beat for beat all the character tropes that she puts into her rendition of Draco. So you do need to go read Naomi Novik Astolat's fanfic because you will enjoy it because you enjoyed A Deadly Education.
Okay, I need to do that.
It's like very well written because it's fucking Naomi.
I will also say that Rainbow Rowell's Simon Snow series is quite literally dreary fanfic.
Okay, this is embarrassing. I read them because their titles are a Supernatural reference, and I
really?
wanted to see. Yeah. Wait, did you not know that?
I thought that they're like because the titles are
Carry On, Wayward Son.
Yes, and then Anyway the Wind Blows.
So the last one is a Bohemian Rhapsody reference, but Carry On, My Wayward Son is a big Supernatural bit because it comes from the title song, which is by the band Kansas, which is literally called Carry On, My Wayward Son. And it is a Supernatural reference. I hate to break it to you on the podcast like this.
Wait, no, so it's the first book is Carry On, the second book is Wayward Son, and then the new one that just came out, which I have like 5 days left on my library loan of it, so I'm gonna read it by our next episode, is Anyway the Wind Blows.
So the first 2 books are the Supernatural references.
But how is it not just a Kansas reference?
No, but the thing is that song by Kansas is so associated with Supernatural because it's the title song, so that anytime anyone wants to make like Supernatural references, they will reference Carry On, My Wayward Son.
How is Carry On, My Wayward Son why?
Because it's the title song, and Supernatural has been on for 15 years. You need to watch Supernatural to understand.
I didn't know that was the title song, and that just shatters my thoughts about Supernatural to me.
It's just a big bit in the Supernatural fandom, so anyone who has watched Supernatural or interacted at all with the fan base knows that Rainbow Rowell is making a big Supernatural reference with her first 2 books.
Oh my god, I just thought it was like the song.
No, it's specifically Supernatural, and there are like 2 or 3 Supernatural references in the first 2 books.
See, this totally went over my head. I just thought that it was like, damn, you really are just writing Harry Potter fanfic and publishing it with different names, and I respect that, because if E.L. James can do that with 50 Shades of Grey, Rainbow Rowell can do that with Carry On and Wayward Son.
But also, it's Supernatural and Harry Potter. Does this change your impression of these books now?
I can't believe it. I can't believe I didn't know it.
Well, the more you know. Also, low-key, my hot take is that they're like just okay.
So, what are your favorite and least favorite fanfics?
You didn't say your least favorite fanfic.
I feel like anytime I don't like a fanfic, I just don't keep reading it.
Yeah.
But I think that, I don't want to open a can of worms here, but this is neither my favorite nor my least favorite. But I do want to say that I have read the entirety of Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. I'm just going to leave that there for, like, the 5 people that are going to get that.
Jesus Christ. God, that's a name I haven't heard in 1,000 years. It's like if Harry Potter was like a libertarian, bro.
I read it while I had food poisoning in Laos.
I'm kind of right. This is getting off topic. Okay, here's my favorite fanfics. I'm going to preface this by saying that I read a lot of fanfic, and this is probably not everything that I love, but I think you can read these two without actually consuming any of the original content it's based off of, which is why I'm talking about them here. So the first is Love is All You Need to Destroy Your Enemies by Shady Dave, which is a Welcome to Night Vale and the Dresden Files crossover. This doesn't sound like it should be good. It's really good. It shouldn't be a fanfic. It should be an original novel, in my opinion. The second is also a Welcome to Night Vale crossover, but it's crossover with His Dark Materials, so it's just a Damon AU. I think Damon AUs are fun when people get them right. And the third I'm going to say is just because I've read this like 4 or 5 times now, just because I like it, even though I never finished The Untamed. It's Lynchpin by Shayna Storyteller, which probably people have all read this if you're in the Untamed fandom. But my least favorite fanfic, and I'm not going to talk specifically about like one fanfic, but like, you know, when people tag a fanfic with like 15 fandoms and like a whole page and a half of tags, that really grinds my gears. Stop doing that, guys.
You heard it here first. I don't know how we want to broach this next question because I just very much misread it.
Okay, so here's the actual question. If you had a griffin as a pet, what breed of cat/bird would you want? Which is, you know, that's a fun question. That's what breeds of cats and birds would you smash together to make a cute little boy? Amanda read it as meaning Griffin McElroy, and then wrote this in the document. An anonymous person on Tumblr asked if Griffin McElroy, who is a host of Mabim Bam and what breed of cat or bird should he be? IDK, what this means, this is weird. And then I added a tag on this that says, I think they meant the mythological animal, not the man. I love that you jumped to this, man. But like, it was very clearly not Griffin McElroy written in the ask. And I don't actually talk that much about Griffin McElroy on my blog. So I think they just meant the animal. And then Amanda replied to that with a key smash. So I don't even know if we want to answer this question or just leave it at that.
Let's just leave it at that.
Let's just leave it at that. Okay, so what's your favorite forgotten YouTube video? Which House Breakfast wants to know. Moving on, we're pretending that last 30 seconds never happened.
One is Goldie Loves Guitar. I mean, speaking of people that like dogs, I am anti-doggo culture, pro Goldie Loves Guitar. Goldie is a dog and somebody's just playing guitar. And then when they stop playing guitar, the dog looks really sad. And then when they start playing guitar again, the dog looks really happy.
Oh no, that's really good. Do you want a fandom answer or do you want like a dumb my life answer?
Or whichever one you think is better.
Okay, I don't know which is better, so I'll say both and you can cut whatever you feel like. Keep this part in though, so that people know that they're missing content. Okay, so when I was in high school, my friend Derek found a video on YouTube, which was a Russian guy singing the Pirates of the Caribbean theme song against green screen backdrop of like the Pirates of the Caribbean, completely naked, like dick out. And he was wearing a pirate hat though. So this was like back in the olden days when stuff like that could stay up for a little bit without getting taken down.
I mean, he wasn't naked if he was wearing a pirate hat.
Yeah, you know, that's all the clothing you need. And then so Derek took the video, cropped it just enough so that the dick was not showing, and then reposted it on YouTube. And then the original video got taken down.
Oh man.
And then his video became the one that had like, I don't want to say 1 million because I don't think it reached 1 million, but it was like 100K plus views on this video of a rip of a Russian man singing the Pirates of the Caribbean theme song in Russian without his dick out. So, you know, I think just as a story goes, that was one of my favorite extremely forgotten videos.
I think that's a good answer. While you were talking, it reminded me of the Goofy Sings Bring Me to Life.
That's such a good video.
And I'll just leave it at that. Speaking of House Breakfast, which is the streamer name for friends of the pod, Eric Silver and Amanda McLaughlin, Grant asked us via Patreon, we have a Patreon, what it was like to have Eric and Amanda on the podcast and how we found their podcast collective multitude and our relationship to their resources.
This is such a like, I don't want to say technical because I don't know if it's quite a technical question, but it's such a like, oh, what's like the down and dirty about making a podcast? I don't mean this in a bad way. I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Multitude is a podcasting collective, and they're super cool. And we've had too many Multitude people on the show for the amount of episodes we've put out at this point because they're just weirdly supportive and nice to us.
We say this as if we're not planning to have Amanda on at some point. We've just been like trying to space it out.
So I was just a fan of Multitude. They have a lot of great shows, and I just was like a fan of Multitude's content, but also a fan of like, damn, it is so cool that these people created an independent podcasting company and like are making it work and treat their employees well. And I knew via the Multitude verse that they created a podcast starter kit, which is $35 and has videos and stuff. And I purchased that for our podcast creation because I was like, I trust these people and what they think about how to start a podcast, and $35 is a good price for that, because if you Google stuff about starting a podcast, you're going to find a billion contradictory answers from like random white dudes in their mom's basement.
How could you say that about our listener, Craig? Sorry, that was mean. I mean, I was going to say that I think our relationship was Multitude in the sense that we used a lot of their podcast starter kit to create our podcast, or just like to inform how a podcast should be made, led to us having a much more professional podcast from the beginning, in the sense that I think we wouldn't have been as polished when we started. And I'm not saying that we were super polished. This is a fucking podcast about memes, but like in the sense that we have audio editing and it's pretty good. Thanks, Amanda.
I mean, I'll just let you keep that compliment in there. But yeah, so we did the hashtag marketing of when we started the podcast. I tweeted like, and we used the @multitude starter kit. And then Eric was like, hey, that's cool. I'll come on the podcast. And I was like, hell yeah, because I consumed his content and enjoyed his content. And then he came on the podcast and we talked about DMing Join the Party, which is a very good D&D podcast that I didn't start listening to until after Eric came on the podcast. And it's actually extremely good. I'm not a huge D&D person, that's Isabel, but like Join the Party is extremely good. And then we also talked with him about what it's like to be someone who is like, he has been recognized on the street before, but also he has 5,000 Twitter followers, which is like not that much. Sorry, Eric.
You have less than him.
I say this as someone who has less Twitter followers. But yeah, we just kind of became friends with them from Eric and Amanda coming on the podcast. But I have a follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
So at first I had a parasocial relationship with Eric and Amanda because I like consumed their content and thought that they were cool and like followed them on social media and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have become friends. But how do I know if our relationship is social or parasocial?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to answer that by saying I think you can have both a social relationship and a parasocial relationship with someone at the same time.
That's so wild.
Well, I'm saying that in the sense that like where you consume someone's content and engage with their content and their public persona in a way that seems like fanish, or if you just want to promote them or something like that. But you can also have a social relationship where you just talk to them. And I think creating that social relationship from a parasocial relationship is always a little bit weird, because it's then you're not really engaging with the hashtag brand, but you're engaging with the person. But I think you can totally engage with the person and the brand at the same time, which is a weird thing to say and it kind of dystopian, but also I think it's fine. I'm thinking a lot about like a lot of the fandom friendships I've made, where a lot of fandom friendships start out because you like somebody's content that they're creating and you think that they're an interesting person in the public persona that they put out there, and that their art is good or their writing is good or whatever. And then if you end up talking to them and actually like creating a relationship through that, you can like become actual friends, or they can choose not to engage with you and you're just a fan of theirs, and that's also like fine. And like I think the interesting thing to think about here is like it's not just a one-to-one thing, right? It's like a one-to-many thing. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like if you're a fan of someone, there's like a lot of people who are fans, and then I think like breaking that and becoming like a social relationship is when you start like having a one-to-one relationship with them. I'm actually not sure. People are weird. I don't think people were meant to have parasocial relationships, but I also think it's like probably fine.
This becomes especially complicated with the idea that we frequently reference about how nobody has 15 minutes of fame. Everybody is famous to 5 people. I don't know. I think it's harder to see yourself as somebody who people have parasocial relationships with.
Just like you and Mike Potterless's mom.
Yeah, his last name is Potterless.
I just think it's funny referring to people by their content creation.
Yes. When Mike Potterless was on the podcast, we talked about how, like, he's been putting out a weekly podcast for like 3-4 years, and that's just a lot of content that, like, if you've listened through half of the podcast even, you know a lot about his life. I mean, we talked about this just because this is like what we talk about on the podcast, but I was like, hey, is it weird that like I know what your mom's name is, but like we don't really know each other? And he was like, not really, because like listening to my podcast isn't weird. It would be extremely weird and invasive if someone was to like look up his mom on Facebook or something. But knowing what his mom's name is because he's talks about his mom on his podcast is not weird, because that just means you listened to the podcast.
I was gonna say let's leave it at that, but it's really making me think about like the relationship I have with like all the people on Tumblr who follow me. And my Tumblr is basically a public diary. So if you're friends with me, you shouldn't look at it. But like all these strangers, if they've been following me for more than like a year, know way more about my life than people in my life know about my life.
Wow.
Because I've done that with multiple people when I was a teenager, just like getting very invested in what's going on in their lives because they post a lot of personal stuff. And I kind of suspect some people have that relationship to me, but I don't want to know if you do. So if you're listening to this and you follow me on Tumblr, don't tell me about how much you know about me. I don't need to know.
Do you think that relationships with therapists are parasocial?
That's an interesting question.
Because I always find it weird that, like, I don't know how to navigate situations where it's like, I feel bad that I don't ask about my therapist's life and I just talk to her about my life. But also that's the relationship that is being set up by, like, what therapy is. But I'm like, what if my therapist thinks I'm a self-centered asshole because I'm not like, oh, hey, how are your kids doing?
See, that sounds like something to talk about with your therapist.
I'll be like, hey, do you think I'm an asshole?
I don't think that's technically parasocial. I think it's maybe just intentionally one-sided.
I think it's maybe just the relationship between a therapist and a client.
Yeah, that might just be what it's like.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I'll talk to my therapist about that.
Good, okay. All right, now that we've done our multitude ad read, let's wrap it up with some very good questions from our pal Alexa. Thanks, Alexa. First, rapid fire. What extinct website do you miss the most?
The only thing that I can think of is Club Penguin pre-Disney.
You know, that's pretty valid, because what I was going to say is I was going to say Neopets pre-inflation.
If you could go back and play any computer game from your youth, what would it be?
I think you can actually still play this online, but Motherlode?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so Motherlode was like a flash game where you played as a miner on Mars and just mined for deep earth metals in a drill tank. So it was very much one of those like resource gathering games, and it was shockingly good. And also you were working for the devil, which you found out if you finished the game. You had to fight the devil at the end. It was like a whole thing. I think that's what it was.
That sounds a bit more exciting than Club Penguin.
Well, did you ever get to the end of Club Penguin? Maybe you have to fight the devil at the end of Club Penguin.
Well, at the very end, they allowed the iceberg to tip.
My God.
Computer games from my youth, I will simply say Pablo Sanchez. If you know, you know.
See, I don't know, so I don't actually know what you're talking about, but okay.
Well, we'll move on.
All right. Have you ever pretended to be someone else on the internet?
Honestly, I don't think I have, which I don't know what that says about me. I think that says I'm a normie.
I think that just says that you're like a very like honest person. Like you're just like a nice, normal human being.
Even on Club Penguin, I had friends that like as a joke, they would like go on dates with people and then be like, I hate you, and then like run away. And like I couldn't even do that because I would feel really bad. Like what if I was really hurting somebody's feelings? You don't know who's on the other side of the penguin.
Behind the penguin mask, there is a man. Yeah, I've pretended to be other people on the internet.
Oh yeah, I knew that answer was coming from you.
You knew that answer was coming. I used to go on like fucking Omegle and pretend to be like other people, just like create some personas to like just screw with people with. That's not a great thing to have done, but it was like, it's not the worst thing people are doing on Omegle.
That's why you're a fiction writer now.
That's why I'm a fiction writer now. I've created like multiple burner accounts for things. This is something I used to do as a teenager more than I do now. I think it was partially a relic of, you know, like stranger danger culture where people were very paranoid about names on the internet, as opposed to now where your name and fucking social security number have to be on everything.
By the way, my social security number is 420-69-6666.
Nice. So yeah, I think it's fun pretending to be other people on the internet, and I think people should do it more. Go lie to people, kids.
Final 2 questions. Aggie May had 2 more questions, which is A, what is our favorite pancake recipe? And B, what the fuck is Homestuck? And I don't know if we can answer that.
Homestuck is a webcomic about the world being destroyed as a catalyst to create new universes through a video game, and the video game being corrupted in 2 subsequent sessions. Homestuck as an experience is unexplainable.
We are planning to do a Homestuck episode at one point where Isabel just explains Homestuck to me.
Yeah, the thing is I need to actually prep for that. And I cannot stress enough how weird Homestuck is as an experience, as in as an ongoing experience.
That needs to be a 5-part series, like the Reply All Test Kitchen series, and then we get canceled halfway through.
I would love to get canceled for Homestuck, honestly, teen me's dream. On that note, if you like this episode, tell a friend. Word of mouth is how we grow, and maybe leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you to everyone who left a review so far, and thank you to all of our Patreon patrons. Shout out to Zoe Stoller, Dan McKeon, and Bray specifically. Another shout out to Sam Rizer, who made our podcast music. You can find us online at wowoftrue.com or on Twitter as @wowofTruePod and Instagram and Facebook as @wowoftrue. If you want to throw us a couple of dollars, slide right into our Patreon at patreon.com/wowoftrue, and if you've had your 15 seconds of fame or are famous to 6 people on the internet or know someone else who is, slide right into our Twitter DMs. And until next time, let's get famous on the internet.